Welcome back to the Stroke of Midnight. Um, we have found ourselves in a unique situation, one that I am not used to, one that I definitely did not intend to put ourselves in. So, the last episode was not received well. And I firmly believe in taking accountability when you fuck up. But beyond taking accountability, it's really important to act on that accountability. So we're going to try something different this week. For the first time ever, we have a guest, a true, full-fledged guest. Kalor is a member of the trans community, but more importantly, she is a member of the Pretty Lights family. So she is a very important member of the Pretty Lights family. Her partner is a very important person within our crew. So I'll be totally forthright. Our orbits don't intersect often. My existence inside of Pretty Lights is very isolating at times, for better or for worse. But we have shared some moments together, some very special ones, to be totally honest. And she's been gracious enough to join us to have a conversation. And thank you for that. And, moving forward through this episode, I'm going to take a back seat and I want to be ears open. And Dorian, I'm going to kind of give the floor to you to take the lead here. And thank you guys for listening. I hope this one is valuable to people.
Yeah, absolutely. The plan for this episode was for me to share my controversial opinions on the elderly, but I think in light of circumstances, we should probably save that for another time. So, that was a bad joke, but I just wanted to, say, similar thing here. I'd like to take a back seat and listen to what Kalor has to say. I echo all of Greg's sentiments. Kalora is this wonderful presence that she's not always there when we're doing shows, but every time she is, it's like I get so fucking hyped when she's backstage and we just have that energy with us. So I can vouch for the fact that, Greg is usually off in his own chaotic world of getting the show ready for everybody. But I have much more of an opportunity to bask in the presence of Kalor, and it is always such a pleasure. So I'm so happy to have you on the show, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you so much, Dorian. I first want to acknowledge the space that you guys are providing, and thank you for making space for this and for these uncomfortable conversations, which are so needed right now. I like to think that there's growth in discomfort. So I really appreciate and acknowledge and applaud that from you too, because this is something that you didn't have to do. And you're choosing to do it. Because and also, Greg, I want to say that my heart goes out to you for what you went through with the backlash that you had. I think is an outcome of everything that's going on, but no one deserves it, especially when we're choosing to be vulnerable and for the sake of good intentions. It's easy to love each other when we are partying, when the lasers are happening, when the substances are flowing, but it is the work of love comes in these moments, I think, when we're like,
Absolutely.
when it's hard to love, that's when we should have love show up. And I have faith that the PLF community will show up for you and the EDM community will show up for you. And And honestly, just the way that I've seen the PLF community move has been very inspiring. I want to give a shout out to them and my love and energy to them. I'm pretty sure you guys probably, this is safe to say, there's not many brown immigrant trans humans in the ADM community sometimes. So I have appreciated how the fans, honestly, the moment that I stepped floor on that environment, and I'll share a little bit how I've moved through so many subcultures through the US. This one was one that was so refreshing and to like show up and not constantly being like pointed at or look weird at. It's a community that has done already so much growth, and I just want to like acknowledge that and be thankful for that. Um,
It's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that that's been your experience.
yeah, and
That's awesome.
so I'm gonna start before I start talking on my experience and maybe my thoughts on certain things that were said on the last episode. I just want to give a little context and story as to like why, so that you can get an idea why I have those opinions and what that was shaped. Um, I I think it was Nick that told me this like sample of like or like this metaphor of like elephant life being an elephant, and there's all these blind people around them, right? And one of them is touching the trunk, like it's long and a little fuzzy, and somebody it's on the, what is it called, the husk or the, I don't
Oh, the
know,
tusk. Yeah.
tusk. Husk is for corn. Also,
Yes.
English is one of my languages, so bear with me on that. But yeah, somebody might say, no, it's actually pretty tough and pretty hard and pointy. I think life is that way. You know, somebody's like, we are like, it's like this, and it should be like this, and it should be like that. And
Hmm.
somebody sometimes has the either privilege or not privilege to be sent to the ass. And somebody said, it was good over there, but sometimes he stinks. And
That
some
it does.
people, you know what I mean? Hopefully you get what I'm trying
Hmm.
to say.
I
Yeah.
do.
So
Yeah, and it's not until you take a few steps back and look from a distance that you can really understand what it even is when you're that close to it and you're actually living it, and in that moment all you can see and feel and understand is what's directly in front of you and not the whole of it.
correct. And now you imagine having a bunch of blind men that are on the top of the elephant telling you how it does not smell while you're in the ass. You know? So, with that being said, I was born in Mexico, Mexico City, which is a heavy colonized place. And I was not aware of that until I came here. Mexico City, heavy colonized place, we know is the metropolis, the New York of Mexico. Underneath there, Tenochtitlan was built by the indigenous people, which was also like the metropolis of Mexico, was the biggest empire at the moment, and now it's destroyed. People build on top of it. My mom comes from the country. My mom comes from a tiny village that is on top of a hill. My grandma's house is on top of a hill. Literally, like, there's even areas that are not pavimented yet. Um, so I grew up with an experience, a Mexican experience, but being very from the city, which is very European influenced, and also I was into the country where there's people with darker complexions, like they don't speak Spanish properly sometimes. My grandma did not even know how to write it. Um, she only was taught how to sign documents. Um, so I grew up with that. It was like very Mexican, but oil and water. Because the Mexico City definitely is connected to a lot of European, Western ideals that sometimes the country, they didn't, is not, wasn't impacted as much. Then at 11, 10, 10 years old, my family migrated to the US, to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Um, that I honestly show up to the US with this mentality because the Mexico honestly has in general, and this might sound surprising, especially with everything that's going on, but trust me, in general, Mexico and Mexican people look up to the US. And that is wired for generations um, throughout many events. So I did show up with a lot of like, like I was thinking I was showing up to the gates of the milk and the honey. And, and I remember getting here and just paying attention, being very observant as a queer person, as a trans entity. I have learned to have eyes and ears on the tip of my hair to just, like I walk into a room and we humans do this, like it's just survival, like instinct. Look, who do we connect with? Who do we might have things in common? It's just survival. But for me, that goes to like 1,000. It's like not only who I have things in common, who might not hurt me, who might not hurt me, who might not, say something, not make me feel like I'm belonging. Because as a trans entity it's like a constant reminder. Like the system or people feel comfortable to let you know that you don't belong. So I definitely I guess that little veil of the dream, it started falling down when I started noticing the racial dynamics. When kids would pick on me or like ask me in a very demeaning way if I eat tacos every day. This was way before Taco Tuesday was cool. This was this was before white people like tacos this much. You know? So like now that there's that, now they're, now it's cool to say we eat tacos every day. But we don't. Mexican gastronomy is like ridiculous, ancient, and like super big. But so then I came to the US, and in the neighborhood that I lived in, Milwaukee, was a very Mexican area, was the south side of Milwaukee. The south side of Milwaukee was, I didn't know this, but people thought it was the hood. I honestly, I would walk around and be like, well, this is pretty. Like there's bushes in front of my house, like there's no holes on the streets, like everything looks great. But certain people let me know that I was now less than the majority. In Mexico, it was almost like I was just like part of, and also I came with a certain bliss, right? Because I was a kid back then. And then here, as I'm becoming a teenager, I started becoming aware of all this. And then I started noticing also how Black people like get treated. This was before I honestly even knew about slavery. Like I showed up as a blank canvas, and I just started like wondering. And I started noticing like certain connections with Mexico. Like my grandma from, hopefully my family, well, I don't think my family will watch this because they don't, not many speak English. But my grandma from Mexico City would go to events in Michoacan, like my first communion, because also I was raised Catholic. And they will make very demeaning comments like, Los Indios, look at them, like those Indians now wearing shoes. Or look at the, like very demeaning. And honestly, something fell off in me, but I did not even thought it was bad. And so, but something fell off. So I started noticing the same dynamics here, and I was like, wow, like I wonder why, but never encouraged to actually do some like homework, until it started affecting me, until it really started impacting me, and really I started making friends. I grew up in the South Side is like a bridge across from the North Side. The North Side is where mostly African American Black people lived in Milwaukee, and that is. I had friends on 35th and Lisbon, on like the hood. To give you an example, I I did not even say the word going or gonna. I learned the word finna first.
Mm.
So that might even give you like my English has continues to grow, and as I even move through subcultures, grow. I didn't know what a wook was until until 4 years ago. And I was even careful using it because I really thought it was offensive until I
Yeah,
started involving myself more, on the social media with the EDM people. Okay, we can be cool about this,
when I throw that term out around friends of mine, like they kind of give me a look when they first hear it. They're like, "What did you just say?" I'm like, "No, no,
It's a very unique word in that it can mean many things depending on
How you
who
used
you're
it?
talking to.
yeah,
Okay. That I can
That's one of the
relate to
tricky.
that.
That's one of the tricky things about English is our words have way too many meanings and
I
can be taken out of
agree.
context very very easily.
yeah.
I agree,
I
and
can't recall
especially
it off.
nowadays when words carry so much weight. And I think also that I think honestly, as humans, we're learning how to communicate because we're learning about where we came from. So that's just like my little background. Or wait, I do want to add a little more because then I grew up in the hood. I had a lot of friends, Kanisha, Jasmine, Amanda, and see, and when I talk about them and when I get on the phone with them, like that, I get sent back and I even start, because I didn't grow up around them, but I guess I did have some teenage years developing myself around them. It's not something that I purposely chose to grab onto. Um, it got attached to me because and you know what? That also opened up to me to their struggles. So that allowed me to not only appreciate and appreciate the hip hop and get rowdy with them, which Mexicans, we love a party. So like, we have so many things in common, but because I spent time there and with them, I couldn't ignore the struggles. And I think sometimes that is what it can hurt a lot of Black people when they see humans that might not have shared the same experience, and they sign up and they definitely want to join them on the party and on the on all this fun stuff, but sadly they are not incorporated in their world, so they don't know about the struggles. They unfortunately don't understand them. So that's why I think a lot of Black people, where a lot of people nowadays is not even Black people, it's even the white people that are allies, which also appreciate it, that say, hey, this is not cool. And I think I wasn't gonna touch on that, but I think, Greg, that's why, like, when you started like sharing, which I appreciate so much, and that was so vulnerable about sharing about your background and your, how you became to know about hip hop, and you were inspired by the resilience that you saw in Black culture. That even though they were
Yeah.
going through struggle, like that is beautiful. Women, I'm not sure. Like I saw this documentary where women in China are adopting Mexican cholo culture to fight machismo over there and
I've seen that.
misogyny. And
Oh
you've
shit.
seen it, right? And even the person
Yeah.
talking about it, they're like, man, we need to study more this, because when does cultural appreciation becomes cultural appropriation, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that can be a difference when we sign up for all the good, but sometimes not on purpose. We just lack the struggles. Um, when
Yeah.
you were talking about your past, I'll definitely be honest and say that when you were talking about, like, the drugs and all this stuff, I couldn't help again but to think about the north side of Milwaukee and wondered how many times maybe you were stopped by cops because of the way that you present it. Because a lot of times
Never.
when because a lot of times when white kids
Yeah.
wear the FUBU and stuff, it's like a swag flex. You look cool.
Yeah.
You look different. Go
Well,
ahead.
when I was doing that, I mean, this was in the early to mid 90s, and that was never an issue for me. But I also kind of flew under the radar in my own clever little ways. So I was that part of it I never really experienced.
Yeah, and and especially in the 90s, we were so we I watch shows sometimes and I'm like, I knew it. I'm like, when I was little, something felt funny. And now I know why. So I think back then, maybe there wasn't people around you to be as aware, to be like, hey. And also I want to step because I want to give black people the credit. Black people, we have taken and be inspired by so much from them. They they're the creators of so much. Even honestly, even slang that I hear, like, even the T. What's the T? Let me tell you the T. What's another one? So many freaking slang. I swear that black, it started with the black trans girls at the club. Like, I would hear that stuff like 10 years ago. And then I go to now I can go to a Pretty Lights concert sometimes, or like, any white space. And I hear like a white girl be like, that's the T, or like, period. Now imagine through generations, through time, this being a constant thing that you see from the shadows, looking up to the mainstream, and you don't see people that look like you being celebrated for those same things. It can be very, very painful. It says like, wow, you get celebrated to say all these things, to incorporate all those things from the culture. And yeah, like that, they definitely don't get credit. I definitely want to move into, I definitely have an agreement with you, Greg, and about the big picture. And when it comes to cancel culture, I highly disagree that we should cut people off and stop dialogue when we disagree with them. I think there's growth in discomfort. So, well, first I like to say that I'm not sure if I believe that cancel culture exists. This is why, because it's not like we're still sending humans to oblivion and then they stop existing. Maybe we'll be nice. I don't know. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
I mean, I can tell you from my recent experiences that it does and it doesn't.
Greg, you're still here. You still have a
I'm
voice.
I'm still here, in spite of some people's efforts. But
You're not gonna go anywhere. So that's why I
no.
think it's like
But
that.
here's the thing that I want to say to that though, is I'm still here because I choose to be here, and I think it's easy for some people in similar circumstances to say, okay, maybe I should just go away. And so even if you don't get canceled by the masses, some people choose to cancel themselves in response to the noise that surrounds them, which is equally as dangerous and troubling, because it's not easy when people like, here's how I see all of this. Here's how I feel about it, is that in 45 minutes, I essentially erased 19 years of goodwill with people. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But these things happen. And all I can do is try to put my best foot forward to maybe, but at the same time, I choose not to be canceled. And so let's move forward. Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say, Greg, and what I like to tell the people that are trying to cancel other people, open their eyes and say, these people that you're trying to cancel, they're not going anywhere. Let me tell you why. You still have your money. You're still going to pay taxes. you're still part of the system. You're still a white man in this society. You're still gonna have your opinions. Why should we, like, it doesn't serve any purpose to come at you and just beat you up and and just like take you off the public eye, but you're still part of society. You're still part of the fabric of humanity. And that's why I think we should not cause distance. We should come closer. Now, can that be asked from everyone? No, no, that cannot be asked from everyone. I personally, I think I'm able to be here and have these conversations with grown white men because of the inner work that I've been able to do. If I would have been on a point that I would have had done much growth or from my own pain in my own circumstances, I would have got probably very triggered by the video and probably wanna, don't even have the space to get on that touch on dialogue. So I a thousand percent hope people don't create distance, but love each other when things get tough. I think that I want to touch on also is the identity being weaponized. Um, I have to say, very honestly, that I did giggle at the title of the name. How did we get here? Because I was like, where
It
are
ended
the
up being
hate coming
very
from?
prescient. Yeah.
You know, and identity being weaponized. The identity is mm, mm. Identity, in my opinion, Greg, has been weaponized from the get-go. I long time ago, like I think it's safe to say this that this chunk of land, the American, what we now call the American continent, there was no European people, there were no people with fair skin that believed in Christianity, and there were these humans doing their thing already here, and and they had their own beliefs. Then this group of people showed up, and from what I gathered, one of them was very judgy. One of those group of people was very judgy, very prejudiced, very
You're not
prejudiced.
wrong.
They were very judgy. They were not curious. They were like stranger danger, kill it. Like there's so many stories. I started reading the diary of Christopher Columbus. At first, I started like listening to it on a podcast, audio. I started listening to it in English, but if I was like, I really want to like get the nuances and everything, so let me listen to it in Spanish. It's not even in Spanish because Spanish was not even a language back then. It's in Catalan. Um, but I still understood very well. He praised the the generosity, the how noble indigenous people were from that continent. They were like they are so they're very like peaceful. They share. It's almost like there is in their nature to share. If you ask them for something, they'll give it to you. They'll make great slaves.
Ooh.
Wow.
And honestly,
That's
he was not even the worst.
right.
Then another conquistador showed up, Cortés, that ended up burning the feet of Moctezuma, the emperor of the Mexicas. And more people showed up. I started reading, and apparently there were like worse people, like literally Christopher Columbus and the other guy were like telling other people to stop the fucked up shit that they were doing. Like just to give you like
Yeah. Yeah.
amaretto. I'm not sure if you know about the candy amaretto. It's there's these ancient candies in Mexican gastronomy that they're not as popular because we weren't even taught to look down upon them. And I later on found out that it's because they taught us that it was food from the devil. They saw kids getting so like so expressive and happy about these candies, and they were like almost think that kids were getting possessed because again, a culture that comes from oppressing emotion. Every time it's again stranger danger. This was a whole different world. So the idea that identity has been weaponized, that comes from, like Dorian said, from the beginning. And
Oh, of
in
course,
my
of course.
in my opinion, Greg, we just we just having growth out of it. Like we just having
Yeah.
growth out
Well,
of
I
it.
think in the context of that conversation, it had more to do with like social media and the way that like our politicians are like harnessing that, that like different causes. And I think it's become a much more prevalent thing than maybe it was for the last 50 years or 100 years or whatever the case may be.
You think
That's where it
so? Can
seems
you tell me
like
why?
it's I mean,
I th- yeah, I would
go
argue
ahead.
it's probably just more visible now.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it is. But and yeah, so it seems to be more at the forefront.
I have my
Not to
opinion
say
on
that it
that.
never existed, but just to say that
Yeah.
it's yeah.
In my opinion, why people are just being now impacted by it. Because bodies have died. Like that thing, like the only difference is that we can maybe say that people are not getting lynched. I've heard rumors that still happen sometimes, but like people are not getting lynched because of
Mm.
that. People are not getting, castrated, or women are not getting castrated, or like I think, Greg, that it's not as bad because we weaponize it, but we just say, okay, I'm not gonna talk to you. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
like nobody goes
Yeah.
to jail, nobody goes to because I mean they should, but because of all this like fucked upness that is going. So that is my opinion is that I think now that there's been more of a conscious saying, hey, y'all been telling us a lot of things about our identity and doing a lot of fucked upness in this system because of our identities. I mean, not too long ago, black people and white people couldn't get married. So
Sure.
I think now there's been more of a conscious, and I'm glad and I'm happy that there's beautiful white people that are doing the work to say, yeah, this is not personal. It's nothing to do with me. It's about the fucked upness of the ancestors, the generations that they did this before. And I just want to stop the pattern because it's not cool.
Mm.
But I can see 1,000% how it can mess with the comfort of many because that has been their expectation for their standard of life throughout
Hmm.
generations. No one is gonna mess with your discomfort. No one. Because the system was more, more hard back then. And now we're willing to say, Greg, no, what you said, or your friend or your other friend, like, hey, fellow friend. I like to tell my friends and all the people around me that there's white people and people that happen to be white. The people that are like, yeah, honestly, there's humans that happen to be white. They just walk around like
Yeah.
humans and they just happen to have fair skin. But there's white humans that carried those generational dynamics that we've seen through history.
Yeah.
Ugh, you still see them in there.
Yeah, I
Mm.
experienced a lot of that in the South, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And it does. There are certain old-fashioned ways of thinking that are still very prevalent beyond, the.
Oh, sorry.
It,
What are
it
you gonna
goes
say?
beyond just like bias or anything like that. It's like much deeper rooted.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think there's this saying that I love. Those that don't learn their history are condemned to repeat it. And I think that is pretty much us humanity, especially in this society that keeps us on the constant
Hmm.
go. Nobody wants to look backwards or has the time, but we really need to learn all the ugliness so that we can stop it, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
Um, Let me read my little note here. Um, I guess I was gonna ask for open-mindedness at the beginning, but I hope that as this dialogue continues, we have an open mind. I know that the PLF community, and you guys are very open-minded humans, and we believe on spirituality. We believe that everything is connected more than we're aware of, and sometimes even more than makes us comfortable. So I invite you to, if we see those connections, it's all those things that we know very little information about. I invite you to open your mind that the actions that we have made as a human society are very, very, very connected to where we are right now. And I think that's where it lies the answer, honestly, in the past. How did we get here? And I think it starts with, again, for me, it starts when people here were doing their thing, and then these people showed up. You know,
They're like, wait, you look happy, but I don't know why. So, whoa.
who, me?
No, no, no. Just the the conquistadors that showed up and saw people enjoying themselves that they didn't understand were like, as you said, stranger danger. Oh, I don't understand this, so let's stop it.
Yeah, let's stop it. Let's destroy it. And
Yeah,
I think that's
just like
that
no,
human.
let's understand it. Maybe we can have a good time too. You know?
Yeah, maybe there's something to exchange. We could
Yeah.
have we could have teach them about the aqueduct so that they could have running water and take baths 3 times a day like we did, you know? And then we wouldn't have died of so many diseases.
Yeah. Right.
But you said something that made me think of something, but well, in summary, that is my perspective. And I think we need to definitely learn more from, I think, colonization and this idea of constantly putting, one group on top of each other based on race. Also, want to touch about the difference between race and gender. I know, Greg, that you mentioned, you did struggle, and I'm glad that you asked this question because so many people, I'm pretty sure so many humans ask that question too. Hey, if I wanna turn myself, a certain color, turn to a certain race, how is that any different than gender? And I think the difference is because as of right now, right, in this world, in this year, in this realm, race is something that it's kind of like it's on you and it's not necessarily something that is changeable, your race. Um and and I think this is where more information is needed when it comes to gender. This is also another thing that I'm not sure if humans know about, but in this chunk of land, indigenous people did not have rules based on what was between their legs.
Hmm.
um They were humans that had penises and vaginas, and they were both sent to war, warriors. There were, I mean, biological differences are there, of course. Humans with vaginas were the only ones that could, have babies. But the roles in society were not determined by what's in between your legs. So this idea honestly showed up with Christianity. And if we wanna wonder why, that's a whole nother conversation. But to me, even when I was little, Greg, I'm not sure if I have a missing bolt or an extra one, but I just question things. Like I remember my mom telling me, open the door for your sister, or open the door for like all the women, or open the door for all the girls. And I remember being little, and the door was heavy as hell for me. and I will be like, like thinking like why? And it took me maybe a few years to then like be like, wait, is it because I have a penis? Like, is that just it? And then see even those little things. See, start got me thinking. Oh, probably they can't. Probably they
Hmm.
can do it for themselves. And then I started like even in my own building this idea of humans with vaginas needed to be put on a pedestal, and they're fragile and weak, and they need to be taken care of, and 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 yeah, so like my brain has always questioned these things, like this idea of gender, these rules that are bestowed upon me because I have a penis. And I want to difference, make sure that we understand the difference between sex and gender. And these are not terms. These are not terms. These are not terms that like I created or like queer people created. Honestly, this has been, since like we came up with, I guess, like we got educated. I should have a look how long ago. But they have never been so important, because normally people like me are in the shadows because we were kind of like an endangered species at some point, you know? Like,
Oh,
especially in Mexico. I'm not sure if you know about the Mushes, the third gender people in Oaxaca that are still living with those traditions, with that third gender. Um, and now that's serving to help to educate the rest of the country in Mexico. But now we're coming out of the shadows and saying, hey, we really need to talk about gender and sex because this is causing, like, people are committing suicide, like, this is not okay. So, like, sex, it's what's between the legs, and we don't have to, like, you can Google it, the reproductive system, and gender is the idea of how they should behave based on their genitals, like the idea of men and women, right? So we created these two genders. That the idea of gender showed up with with the white people, you know. And we
Hmm.
again, we were not we there were women that were mathematicians, astronomers, and all these rules of like a human with a vagina should be like this, a human with a penis should be like this, and limited to them. We should ask ourselves, why do they want that? My cousin told me.
Hmm.
My cousin is conservative and he's Mexican and he comes from the country. That's a whole nother combo too. But he told me, well, I think it's good to have that because it adds order. It creates order. And I thought, for what purpose?
You're right.
For the sake
And
of what? To benefit who? Because it does not benefit me. And people like me have existed before y'all show up.
hmm.
So this system that y'all bring in is causing for me to constantly think that I have to kill myself because I should not exist. This is not for me. There's no boxes for me to check on the applications, or people like definitely with their eyes let me know, or even with words. Um, so so sorry, I lost my train of thought. This is why Nickelodeon is here.
Oh, sorry. I'm so glad you brought up the like indigenous people of America and like that sort of I'm trying to remember the exact term, but I think they called it like third spirit or something like that. It
Two
was
spirited,
yeah,
two
very
spirited,
y- yes,
two
that's right.
spirited.
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah,
That's
because you
why
you you
I
have like the masculine and feminine parts, are both present,
energy.
and like it's yeah, you're not one or the other. It's this sort of blend, and and they were, if I remember right, like people um who evidenced this were like very venerated. They were looked up to as like sources of wisdom and like people who could really, really understand on like a broader level, the whole totality of like human experience.
Yeah,
And yeah,
you're
and I
very
know
right.
even and again, like to your point, that like this is not a new thing. This has been around for a very long time. What's new is trying to say no. There's only two, and this is the way they behave. I
Yeah,
know
I
even
mean,
in yeah, even in like Weimar Germany, right before like Nazi Germany came to prominence, was this very open society where it was very like actually yeah, accepted to question all of these things, and especially constructs like gender and things like that. And you know, obviously, as we've seen, if you're obviously very much a student of history, the pendulum, when it swings one way, it sort of tends to swing the other way really violently. And that's kind of what ended up happening, was this a huge, you know, enormous kind of like freedom. And then it came, and there's very totalitarian, obviously authoritarian regime came in, you know, on the wings of whatever people were, you know, not so excited or accepting of like this very free society. And you know, people come in and they realize they can take advantage of that and use it, you know, to put themselves in a position of power. And that's, I think, a lot of, you know, to the larger point of this conversation and our previous conversation, you know, kind of what we're seeing now. But yeah, it's I think it's such an important thing to remind people every time this comes up, that like this is not a new thing. Like this is not just something that got invented like 10 years ago. Just, you know, maybe that's when you first heard about it, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't existed prior to that, you know? And yeah, the more you see it, the more you look into it, the more you see that, like, actually, I think historically speaking, you know, that's the mentality that has been pervasive through most of human existence, you know, and not the one that so many people are so like attached to now. Yeah, it's just, it's so crazy to see. And like, you know, this is something I've been learning a lot about, you know, over the past many years. I think like a lot of people. And yeah, I've been constantly shocked, even as a film nerd, you know, seeing how this kind of world history and like film history have even like influenced each other, and things that I thought were like, you know, just really interesting from like a cinematic perspective was like, no, this was like a whole movement, you know, this was somebody really standing up to something and saying like, fuck this, like,
I'm
you
pretty
know,
sure you're
and
aware how trans people or two-spirited people are seen or being portrayed in films.
mhm.
And I get it. Listen, to an extent, I think in order for me to even be aware and reckon with all of this, I really had to have empathy for the other side and connect to the other side. And I think my curiosity or the universe keeps putting me in places where I'm the only one or I'm the first one. And it's extremely uncomfortable, but I'm like, universe, there's something here. I don't know why you keep doing it, but 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 I get it. I have empathy. I have empathy to that idea that we as humans have like this kind of like little seed in our hands that like I wanna help. I wanna save all the human problems, and this is how it should be. I understand that a lot of people showed up long time ago and to this continent and said this is how it should be. So I kind of get it, you know, I kind of empathize with it, but I think it's time to say, no, y'all, like it is not working. It's not even working for y'all because everyone can have this freedom. Everyone can access these energies, and that's what it's about. In Mexica, the biggest deity is Ometeotl, which is the deity of creation, and this energy of creation is actually splits into two deities, a feminine and masculine. And you're right. The humans that were perceived back then as to connected with masculinity and femininity, which we don't. I'm not. I need to honestly study more what that looked like back then, because now it could be in a modern world. It could be wearing heels. It could be putting makeup, right? But back then, everybody jeweled themselves up, so they were connected. These humans were connected with masculinity and femininity, and yes, they were revered. They were the left hand of leaders. They were the ones that blessed weddings, blessed babies. They also engaged sexually. There was like this. They were also they were creators, and they were also revered for their connection to sexuality, and even moments with like in sex with them were seen as like spiritual experiences. Yeah, a whole other universe. So that's why when I hear sometimes some like a voice saying this trans movement is going too far, I can help but to say, are we already running this? Like, are you guys a minority? Are we already in positions of
Mhm.
power? Where's my throne? Where's my throne and my scepter? Um,
Mhm.
so it is. I think it's a little bit. Can you imagine like telling Martin Luther King? Because I'm pretty sure somebody thought in Martin Luther King times, somebody that felt very discomfort or very uncomfortable with black people starting to have an equal plane. They saw it as a
Mhm.
threat maybe to their own experience. They were like, they should wait till next generation. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
like,
no, you're not wrong.
Mhm.
and can you imagine telling that to Martin Luther King? Is like, yo, we cannot even, you know, like be comfortable. We can even just live. That's why also the whole thing with the sports, I find it also very dangerous because, like Dorian mentioned, it does at least to my to me, Greg, to me gives me the idea that there is a lot of missing information just because it echoes a particular voice that I've heard.
No,
And I'm very happy that you open up your mind to many voices. I know you mentioned what is his name? Weinstein, um, uh, Bill Maher,
no,
and Rogan. I hope
no.
those are not the only
No,
one.
no, of course not. Of course not. I use those three as an example because they represent the full spectrum of talking heads. You know, where
Mm,
Rogan is drifted to the right, Maher is drifted to the middle, and everyone thinks that Howard Stern has drifted too far left. And so that's why I use those three names specifically because they represent the full spectrum
is
of
that an
opinion.
opinion
Yeah.
or a fact, you think?
Um it's uh, it's an opinion. That's how people feel. I think that they all get mischaracterized.
Which people?
But which people? What do you mean?
Like, which people are you speaking for?
I think the general like the greater like mindset of how people see somebody. And so there's this overarching feeling that, you know, Rogan has gone way right. There's this overarching feeling that Maher has drifted away from the left. And then there's this idea that Stern has gone too far left, where he used to be sort of something else. I don't know, but like
Yeah.
I just in my mind I was like, okay, I'm just trying to paint a picture of like I'm listening to a broad spectrum of
Mhm.
voices.
Like,
That
Greg, you think
was
he's broad?
yeah.
These are like white, like
It's
middle-aged
because
Well,
men.
fair, but in
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
so curious.
yeah, I
How
understand.
broad is this picture? Is this picture that you're talking as broad as
I understand.
three?
I understand, and you're correct. You're correct. But in my simple-minded way, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's hard. You know, it's hard to it's hard. One, it's hard to see outside your bubble, and we're all guilty of this in one form or another.
It takes for us to get out of our bubble, Greg.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
true.
It takes getting
It's
out of our
also
bubble.
it's also like um I think it's how do I want to say this?
Say it. You can edit it out later.
No, I know. But I'm trying to be thoughtful.
Yeah.
And it's when you're a person who is constantly in motion, it's really really easy to like think that you're you have a broad mindset. And then moments like this happen that remind you that no you don't. And so, you know, these are the things that I'm learning. Is that while I've considered myself open minded and broad minded and very willing to hear the thoughts and ideas of others. It's been made very clear to me that I am not as open-minded as I think I am.
And that's
And
very
so that's,
humble.
you know,
That's very
why,
humble to admit.
yeah,
And I think honestly, Greg, for as much I feel like have been moving, but even I don't have all the life experiences. That's why honestly I love connecting with humans, because every human
sure.
is an expert at their human experience, and I think there's something to learn. When it
Yeah.
comes to
I love that.
I definitely want to talk about I'll touch on the trends and like how it can be, that statement of the, like I said, that continued repeated statement. Um, it's just again, words have so much weight, and when this constant statement of like making trans people seem dangerous, when in reality we are kind of like the ones that are constantly being either verbally or physically attacked.
Sure.
I think again, I'm like, man, like worry about that when like we're not there yet. We're not there to worry about it. Um, and
I
you
do want
can
to
inject
clarify
some
something.
feelings,
I do want to clarify
even.
something.
Mhm.
The one thing that, like, I probably, I went and looked into this more, and I bought into some bullshit, but there was some controversy around the Olympics in boxing, and that was when I said what I said, there was this picture in my mind of that specific scenario. And that's not fair because, one, it comes off as though I'm generalizing. It wasn't my intention to generalize. Um, but it's easy to also buy into some bullshit when there's so much noise around us. And it, unfortunately left a resounding, imprint on me 2 years later, And so, I just want to clarify that's where that was coming from.
Yeah,
This
for that
wasn't some
example.
general, yeah, this wasn't some general, like, oh, I don't think that anyone should be involved in anything outside of their biological scenario. Like,
See,
that's,
Greg,
yeah,
See, Greg, and when we're touching about those things, like when I hear say like, well, I wasn't sure. I think those are the things that are important.
sure.
We really, if we're gonna talk about it, I think it's important to really be sure
Yeah, of
about
course.
really, like, is this person trans?
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not sure if you know, but also like hormones. There are biological women
Yeah.
that have higher levels of testosterone that they don't let them compete.
Yeah.
So there's so many regulations
Yeah.
that, like, like I think the sport's a whole other conversation. But I think we can. I think my opinion is that has been weaponized. It comes from a close-minded imperialist mindset of wanting to again annihilate the existence and continue to keep the status quo of misogyny, imperialism,
Yeah.
patriarchy, because my existence pokes questions at that system, saying
Of course.
that system might not, you might be happy going out of that system. You might be happier connected to feminine and masculine energy, so I think it is so important to, when we're gonna talk about like certain
Yeah.
things like that, like it's so important to know, like I said,
Oh,
all the
yeah.
old facts.
I will say too, like, Dorian and I, we do this podcast mostly every week. And sometimes you forget that people are actually listening to this.
Yeah.
And our conversations, are natural. And so when, we find ourselves in something, it's easy to not like overanalyze what you're saying, and things can just kind of come out. And that's something that, like, now I've learned very, 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 very important lesson in that, like, yes, people are listening, and
And you have a
it's important.
platform.
And now you do too, and I think that's really important. But it's also, it's important to recognize, like, the value in and being to showing care to the things that we say, not just thinking that, oh, this is a throwaway comment or something like that. Like everything matters in one form or another, and it may not matter to everybody, but it might to somebody very much. So it's, there are things that, I take away from this that go well beyond just these important topics, but like even when it comes to the silliness that we talk about, it's like is this a true representation of how I feel? Because sometimes you just say things like when you're talking shit to your friend, sometimes things just come out. They don't come out the right way. They don't come out the way you meant it to come out. And, and then, or like, it's also easy to, the context is in your head, but maybe you don't verbalize the context properly. Right. And then it can be taken the wrong way. That happens to all of us in conversation all the time. Yeah. And so, I've learned a lot. Let's just say that. I've learned a lot both about myself. I've learned a lot about how this all gets received. And I've learned a lot about you today, which I'm very grateful for. Because,
absolutely,
like I said, our brief encounters with each other have been very, very positive for me. And I hope you can say the same. And I look forward to having more with you.
Absolutely, Greg. And like I said, I honestly did not want this to be preachy, like me come across as preachy and know it all, because I don't know it all. I'm a fellow human. I'm a fellow human like y'all.
Listen, you are telling your story however you see fit, and for that, I thank you.
And I feel compelled to talk to you just because of that connection that we have. Like, I was literally doing my craft. Nick just started watching the video, and I couldn't help but to like my ears, and
like,
started like
oh, excuse
me.
Yeah. Greg just shot himself in the foot again.
It was definitely an entertaining episode.
Well, I'm glad you saw it that way.
Yeah, and of course Nick and I, right, Greg. If the conversation of Nick and I would have gone on online, probably we would have got canceled too. Because the things that we say or the way that we express are the way that we feel comfortable with each other. But I want to say again, I take my hat off for you and Dorian. As white men, y'all literally did not. You could have lay on your laurels and your privilege, and you did not have to do this. And you choose to do the work, and you choose to bring in the conversation someone that might have lived some of those things that I talked about, that you talked about. So I just, I cannot even, there's not enough words. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be an ongoing conversation, because I really feel very grateful. And I just feel, like I said, when talking about to Nick, I'm like, and you were saying certain things, and I was like, okay, a broad spectrum of voices. And I was like, has he talked to a trans person? And literally it was curiosity, and that's when I started thinking, okay, well, if he wants,
I did not want to put anybody in a position. So thank you for, bringing this opportunity to me.
Amazing.
Because it's equally important, for me to hear people out.
It's only Greg, because the connection that we've had it's only because the conversation that we had on New Year's. If you would have been someone that I don't know, I think I would have let society teach you how it's going to teach you.
It's amazing.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up. I have been taught. Let me just say, I have learned a lot.
But I don't want to do that. I want to be a part of it. I have love for it.
Yeah. And I thank you so much. I really do.
Greg, I have to say something, Greg. I have before you wrap this up. When I finished the episode and after finishing all this, I thought to myself, and he started the episode flexing that he was gonna work with a Afro Latina daughter of immigrants.
Yeah.
So even to me that has some layers, that
Sure.
that it shows. Let's appreciate it, but also like, and I know that Cardi that woman for me is a representation of resilience and growth. That woman, oh my God, I used to watch her in Love and Hip Hop. Oh man, that woman, I have so much admiration for that human, and I invite you to connect with all the people around her.
I've made a lot of interesting connections already in this brief period of time that I've been here.
From what I know, there's a lot of trans girls that are her friends, do her makeup. So I invite you. I invite you to meet with them and get to know them. And
absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
ahead,
I just want to say one thing really briefly as well. At the closeout here too. I know obviously, there's some people who have pointed to me like pushing back on Greg, in the last conversation, stuff like that, and I'm glad we were able to talk and everything. But I just want to say also that like I've also through all of this, I've also been taking a deep look at myself. And what I can learn and how I can continue to grow, through this scenario as well. And I've expressed this to Greg earlier. It's like I feel like I could have been more sensitive in a lot of ways and said some things like maybe even after we recorded to be like, Greg, maybe we should have this conversation again. Things like that. I think there was some just conscientiousness on my part. That could have been a little more present, and would have effectively, could have helped us avoid this entire situation, or maybe.
Yeah, but you know what?
Right. This
is how we grow. So,
absolutely.
We take.
Things happen for a reason.
Exactly.
Totally. Yeah.
We take the bad with the good, and we just try to make the best of every situation. And I accept my role in all of this. Nick put it best. I am officially the heel of the PLF. So,
yeah.
I look forward to the next round.
Yep.
Oh my God.
But I say that just to bring up that like, even it's just no matter what, even if you're not, even if people aren't calling you out, even if, it's not become like a scenario, you should always really just be considering these things. And like after any conversation you have with somebody, really kind of like digesting that and taking the time to like kind of really understand what actually occurred, and what you might be able to pull from and where the lessons are inside of that, no matter what the interaction is. So I think that's really
you're touching on curiosity, Dorian. I think curiosity.
Yeah. That's the whole point of this podcast.
Exactly.
That's why I started this podcast, was to like, shine a light on how our curiosity and how the things that surround us inspire us. And so,
I love seeing why men get curious about all these things, but that's why I invite people to, if you're gonna get curious, maybe put somebody in the room that has a little
Absolutely.
Part of me was like, why is Greg talking about this with Dorian?
It was best intentions.
I'm messing.
I know.
I love you guys. I send you a lot of love to Christina, to you, Dorian. Greg,
thank you so much.
I hope you do some extra twerking for me, please.
I'm gonna learn how to twerk on this.
Please.
I don't have a butt though, so
I was
don't know
gonna
how
say
effective it's gonna be.
People don't know, but Greg is caked up. Yeah, people just don't know it.
All right. Well, I do have to go to work now. Thank you again so much, both of you, for having this conversation. Thank you to everyone who let me know exactly how they feel. I appreciate the honesty, and I'll do better next time. Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.